What's up, guys? This is Zara from MadeForMedical.com, and today we're going to talk about the physiology of the endocrine pancreas. This video is part of a review series over the endocrine system. In the previous videos, I went over hypothyroidism and Graves' disease. So if you're interested in those videos, check them out too. And as always, at the end of this video, don't forget to check out the latest videos and information at my website, MadeForMedical.com. Okay. So we're going to talk now about the endocrine pancreas. Now, if you recall, the pancreas is this little tissue that's sort of tucked in the bend of the duodenum as it sweeps down from the stomach. And it's right across from the liver, and it drains with the bile or via the common bile duct, actually through the pancreatic duct, into the small intestine. So one of the functions of the pancreas, we're going to talk about more when we get to the GI system, is this exocrine function, where the pancreas is dumping large amounts of bicarbonates and enzymes that aid digestion into the small bowel via this pancreatic duct, and that's one of the major functions of the pancreas. Most of the cells of the pancreas are arranged in what are called pancreatic alveoli, which is a group of cells around the central area that drains into the pancreatic duct. And again, it's producing, amylase and lipase and other pancreatic enzymes that aid in digestion. But interspersed within these pancreatic exocrine cells, there are these islets of other cells called the islet of Langerhans. Langerhans was the anatomist who discovered these, and here's a picture of an islet of Langerhans with different cells in it, lit up in different colors. Now what we have here is a group of cells. Here's a beta cell, and these are the most common type of pancreatic cell, and they're the ones seen in blue here. And their primary function is to produce insulin. The orange cells here are called alpha cells, and they produce glucagon. Now there's a few green cells here, and they are actually called PP cells, or pancreatic peptide cells. And they produce, of course, pancreatic peptide. And then there are smaller cells, I believe are delta cells, that produce somatostatin, and then epsilon cells that produce ghrelin. Somatostatin, ghrelin, and pancreatic peptide are the hormones that are involved directly with digestion. We're not going to talk about them a lot, and actually, recently not very much was known about their endocrine role. Actually, somatostatin is a chemical that has a dual role, because it also functions as a growth hormone. But suffice to say, we are not going to spend time learning about somatostatin and ghrelin in this video. So, our major focus will be discussion of the pancreatic function of producing and secreting insulin and glucagon and their role in the management of glucose levels in the body. Okay, so what does insulin do? Insulin has significant effects actually throughout the body, but it has very important effects on the liver, the muscle cells, and fat cells. Insulin increases glycogenesis, which is the creation of glycogen molecules in the liver, decreases glycogenolysis, which is the breakdown of glycogen to create glucose, and it also increases amino acid uptake and fatty acid synthesis and storage. So, because of this, insulin is considered an anabolic steroid because it actually encourages the body to create new things like new fat, new muscle, etc. Now let's talk about how insulin promotes the entry of glucose molecules into the cell. Throughout the body, glucose has an important role, and allowing glucose to be transported into the cells is an important function of insulin. Throughout the body, glucose has an important role, and allowing glucose to be transported into the cells is an important function of insulin. There's an insulin receptor almost on every cell in the body except within the central nervous system. But how does insulin make glucose enter into the cell? This is an insulin receptor here. So when insulin is released into the bloodstream by the pancreas, it binds to this insulin receptor on cells throughout the body. So when insulin is received by this receptor, it sends out a second messenger to various places of the cell. One place it goes is to the glucose transporter, and this image doesn't show this, but another place that it goes is to sodium-potassium ATPase pump. And this is critical because it requires this high concentration of sodium outside of the cell in order for the glucose transporter to work. Because glucose is transported by facilitated diffusion, by a mechanism called secondary active transport, where it sort of rides one sodium molecule and one glucose molecule, connecting on here together, and sodium rides down its concentration gradient and back into the cell, and glucose takes a ride along with it. So, in order for this glucose transporter to effectively transport glucose, we need to have a good concentration gradient, like a normal or low concentration of sodium inside the cell and a higher concentration of sodium outside the cell, and this is maintained by this sodium-potassium pump. So that's why it's important for insulin to both activate the sodium-potassium pump as well as the glucose transporter. Okay, so interestingly enough, what is it that stimulates insulin to be produced? So the pancreatic hormones are not controlled essentially by the hypothalamus or the pituitary gland. They respond directly to the blood levels. Insulin in particular responds only to the blood levels of glucose. Insulin is a hormone that is important in the uptake of proteins and fats as well, and is just as important for fats and proteins, but without the presence of glucose, insulin is not going to get secreted. So the fats and proteins will not get secreted by the cell either. So, it's interesting because I think one of the reasons that Atkins diet has some effects, and it's still controversial, but theoretically, by decreasing the carbohydrate load, decreasing the amount of glucose available in your bloodstream, you're going to decrease the amount of insulin secreted from your pancreas, and you're not going to effectively absorb fats and proteins into your cells, and they may get secreted, which will decrease the number of nutrients available to the cells, and that's one of the theories behind why the Atkins diet worked. Now, glucagon is actually stimulated to be released from the alpha cells highlighted here in this diagram in red. It's usually released when there are low levels of glucose, and glucagon works, as far as I know, only in the liver, and is not as complex as insulin. It stimulates the liver to release glucose via glycogenolysis. So it's breaking down glycogen into glucose, and also stimulates glycogenesis, which means the creation of new glucose from other substrates such as proteins, fats, or lipids. This brings me to the end of my discussion on the physiology of the endocrine pancreas. Please take a moment to provide feedback, and if you have any questions, please leave them below, and I will endeavor to answer them. And I'm going to put up a couple of links here, one to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and another as a quick link to other endocrine videos. So if you want quick and easy access to one of those videos, click one of the links below. Thank you very much for watching.